Well, thanks very much, Fraser. Hi, it's really great to have everyone in. So, of course, hi, I'm Andrew Barnes. I'm originally from County Down, Northern Ireland, but I'm now based in Scotland working with fuel change. And I'm involved in our customer engagement. So originally, I'm a business student from Stirling University. So I've not gone very far down the road as I'm now based in Falkirk. But more in the recent terms of my history, I became really passionate about putting ESG and social value into the core of business. So much so I really started to look at it in the investment world, where I looked into joining a student-based investment society, becoming the ESG officer. And now I work day to day working with businesses looking to embed really good business practices in the business on a daily basis. And I'll pass on to Gavin. I think he'll introduce himself.
Thanks, Andrew. So we're actually sitting next to each other, and we're actually going to be switching during this session. We're going to be sharing different insights, but it's wonderful to be joined by such a large group of people today, clearly interested to learn and share and talk about this really important topic. I'm Gavin Tweedy. I'm Director of Community with Fuel Change. I've been here for about 2 years now and been involved in a number of decarbonisation and sustainability challenges with thousands of young people and hundreds of businesses. And that's what's informing a lot of the conversations that we're having with people today, and really looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say. Want to hear your views. So without further ado, we'll get started, and I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. Thank you. So today we're going to be going over the role of ESG and social value, because it means different things to different people. Many people do it for box ticking reasons, and we're not sitting here today to judge businesses. This conversation today is about how can you embed ESG and social value in business in a way that actually helps your business become stronger. Yeah, so today is really about, imagine if this wasn't something that you tolerated, but you actually embraced it. So I want to hear from you guys today about where you're seeing instances of people embracing ESG and social value, and they're benefiting from it, that it's helping them grow their business and attract the workforce of the future. So we'll bring all that out through the agenda. We're going to go through the rise and influence that it has. How are people quantifying social value? Is an interesting conversation. Really keen to hear opinions and views on that. The positive steps that businesses are taking. So we'll then dive in and start to really take your thoughts and views on this. So the first thing to say is that there's actually a lot of confusion when it comes to ESG and social value. It means different things to different people. What we've seen over the last 2-3 years is certain businesses say, oh, it doesn't apply to us. You know, ESG is something that applies only to large corporations. So it means that there's a lot of confusion out there in the market. So we just put this simple word cloud together to throw up. These are some of the terms. Some of these things you'll be familiar with, some of them you won't. But it's really just to sort of say that no one is starting from the same position. And hopefully after today's conversation, more people will be on a level playing field. So when we talk about ESG, what is it and why should a brand care about it? So we normally wouldn't do this, but just to read this off the screen. ESG, environmental social governance, is about measuring how well an organisation is managing its responsibilities and its commitments, and looking at the progress that it's making against those commitments. And one of the reasons that today's conversation is around environmental social governance and social value is to draw a distinction, because a lot of the people that we work with every day have a better appreciation of what social value is than ESG, but the customers that they have are finding them coming under more and more pressure every day to publicise and disclose and provide transparency into their ESG commitments. And they're passing that down the supply chain. So the SME community is inheriting more and more of this, even though it perhaps isn't as much of a day-to-day business driver. So very keen to hear people's views on this. So when we talk about what is social value, it's really interesting that people have a specific impression of what social value is, but it's about moving beyond money.
This guy's pure glass.
Yep. And looking at what are the main indicators of value that we create? How do we engage people? And look at the impact that people's decisions have on lives. So looking at social impact, what growth drivers do we see coming around community, creating resilient businesses that can weather economic storms and rising energy prices and other challenges like that. How do we create jobs that are inclusive for everyone? People talk to us a lot every day about vanity qualifications. We measure people on one qualification alone, and that locks a lot of people out of the workforce. So how do we create more equal opportunities and job opportunities? And then, of course, what are we doing to protect the environment that we all live within? Our right to breathe clean air and drink clean water. So social value means many things to many people, and looking forward to hearing examples of where you've seen it help businesses become more successful through doing more good things more often. So where we're seeing the change is it's coming through in places like procurement situations where historically a tender would be issued and it would be really much driven by maybe two factors: price, quality, deliverables, those sort of things. More and more we're seeing tenders coming out where there's a larger percentage associated towards social value and ESG evidence. And the brands that can demonstrate that they've got more positive ESG outcomes are finding it has a greater impact on their business. But there's also legislation that's been tightened all the time. So how are we making sure that we're keeping in line with the evolution in legislation? So another thing we talk about social value, how do you measure or how do you evidence your commitments? There's a lot of talk out there today around things like greenwashing. And actually, it's driven a lot of people into another mode of green hushing, which is where you keep quiet about the things that you're doing because you don't want to be accused of making false commitments, false promises. So there's more and more demand for tangible evidence that, you have created jobs, or you have trained a certain number of people to a certain standard, or you have made a certain amount of planet positive impact. And there's also another aspect to this, which is monetary impact, that the British government has assigned a monetary value to social value. So businesses are looking for ways that allow them to creatively demonstrate this. So metrics is a really big thing to look at. How do we evidence and attribute this? So what I'm going to do now is hand over to Andrew, and we're going to launch a poll in a moment, and we're really interested to ask for your opinions on this. So Andrew, we're just going to swap places, and I'm going to get you to run the group through this. Thanks very much.
So this is where, despite the technological evolutions that we've gone through, we still need to move chairs once in a while. So yes, as Gavin's mentioned, there should be a poll appearing on your screen very shortly. In the next couple of seconds there, it should be up now. So really what we're looking for here is your opinion on what you perceive as the overall UK's business attitude towards ESG and social value. Now, there's three key areas that we've said here. We said ignore, tolerate, or embrace. So what we mean by that is, either A, do you think people are they know it's a thing, but they have no interest in looking at it whatsoever? B, do they recognize it as a thing, but are more reactive and they're using it once it comes onto their doorstep and if they have to do it? Or do you think people are actually embracing this as an overall attitude and actually putting into the core of their business? We're less looking for what you guys are doing specifically, and we'd love to hear more about that as we get on later into the session. But we'd love to see right now is your overall impression of the entire UK business world. So responses that are coming through quickly now. I'll give you just another 10 or so seconds, just because I think most of you have managed to get your answers in. So I'll give you about 5 or so more seconds just to get everyone the opportunity to answer, and then we shall see what the result is.
Yeah.
Just
take a note of it just now before you end it. Okay, that's great stuff.
So I'm gonna stop the poll there now. And what I'll do is I'll share the results, so you'll all actually be able to see, I hope, what everyone has actually said for this question. And interesting enough, B has obviously seemed to have been the most predominant answer of people's attitudes to, also the UK's business attitude towards ESG and social value. What I'd love to know, though, is why everyone thinks that seems to be the predominant answer. Because we really want to talk about this later on, is if you can pop into the chat, why do you think most people believe that that is the UK's attitude? Of course, we've seen a few people say that the UK's attitude is to ignore it, and a number of people say that its attitude is to embrace it. And again, we'd love to hear why people think that's the case later on. But what I'd love you to do right now is fly a message into the chat, and we can certainly discuss that later on in today's session. So I'm going to stop sharing that, and we're going to move on to the next topic. There we go. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm a business student by origin. And of course, this is where I've started to really have a fascination as to what it means to put ESG into the heart of your business. So what does that mean? Well, that means actually not just having a social value or a sustainability department. This is all about having this built in across your entire organization. As you can see, there's a number of different circles up on the screen now, but those are even just a small amount of the ones that may be within a business. This is, if we look back to an example, it's maybe not sustainability, but something that's gone through a similar story arc, as it were, in terms of how important this is to business, is look at health and safety. Health and safety a number of years ago was in a very similar position to what sustainability and social value is now within a business. And now health and safety is put across the entire organization. No matter what your position or job is, the health and safety responsibility is a high priority. And this is what we're seeing, is that's a very likely motion that these are going to go in. Social value and sustainability is going to be built into HR and culture. It's going to be built into your sales and marketing teams. But one or two that I really want to pick up on, and I'm going to go into this now, is looking at the actual benefits this has when you actually build this into the core of your business and spread it across all your departments. So if I was looking at, for example, in the previous slide where we're looking at culture and HR, when you embed social value into your business, you attract quality talent that want to stay with you and they want to work with this company. This builds a really strong culture where people stay with you, they build the skills with you, and they deliver with you. Another one I'd be keen to talk about as well is the procurement side of business. Social value and ESG is a unique competency of some businesses. This can really be a differentiating factor between you and other competitors, giving you a competitive edge. I mean, I'd love to hear if you've ever heard any stories of anyone or any of your competition who have, say, had success because they've noted that they actually have outstanding social value or ESG commitments. There's, I was recently, I had the pleasure to be at a conference recently where someone was speaking about how they were looking to win a tender. And they tried the best that they could to persuade who it was that their features and technology was something else. But it wasn't until the person they were talking to actually said, well, look, everyone's saying the same thing. I want something that's a bit different, something that's actually going to make a bit of a unique impact. And he says, we know what we do that. We take a really strong effort to look at our social value and we put that across our entire business. And that actually led to him winning a contract that he would have not won otherwise. But again, as I mentioned before, I'd love to hear some real examples that you might have. So when we actually start to have a look at the companies that are using ESG and social value to actually give them that edge that I've previously talked about, there's some really well-known examples that we've all heard of. Of course, Patagonia was massive in the world news recently when their founder actually gave away the company to a sustainable trust. Of course, there's been more recent examples as well, like H&M, often being a company that was criticized in the fast fashion world, to actually being applauded at the most recent COP27 event where they've looked to actually have sustainability KPIs as their main KPI above profit. But of course, these are really big news stories. And there's some that you sometimes don't really hear about because they get put under a wave of sometimes negative scandals or bad news where it's negatively affecting business. But it's really good to look at how it's actually going to improve your business and make it stronger. What I've got now is two really key examples I'd love to talk to you about of where this has been a real success. UPS, it's maybe a company we're less familiar with in terms of the UK market, but it's one of the biggest delivery services in the United States. And in the United States, 30% of their greenhouse gas emissions are associated with transport. So UPS realized this and they thought, right, how do we handle this? So they adopted an AI program called Orion, and this allowed them to actually work on optimizing their routes so that their vans would use less corners on their journeys to go deliver parcels. Now, what this meant was, with the reduction of corners, etc., it meant that they used far less fuel. In fact, they used 10 million gallons less of fuel. And if you're anyone who's gone over the recent fuel crises since the war in Ukraine, you'll know fine well fuel isn't cheap. So this was where there's associated benefit between, one, it saved them a lot of money, but most importantly, this is saving them 100,000 tons, metric tons of carbon a year. That's a huge impact for one company. It's equivalent of taking approximately 20,000 cars off the road every year. Just to put into grand perspective for you. So that's a company doing on a grand scale. But then let's look to a more local UK example, White Mackay. So White Mackay are a company that we've been working with actually to run a sustainability challenge. Now, for those who don't know, White Mackay is a well-renowned international brand in the Scotch whisky market based up in Inverness at their Invergordon distillery. And what they're doing is having a cohort of young, ambitious students and apprentices from the University of Highlands Downs coming into the site, start looking at it and come up with new innovative ways that they could maybe actually look to make an industry such as the whiskey industry that's been known for huge amounts of greenhouse gas emissions and large amounts of energy use, and how they can actually make this a more sustainable organization and industry for the future, as well as an industry that's been known for not having, a large number of next generation talent within its ranks. This is coming from me myself, who is in that next generation category, that Gen Z category. I have a real passion for the whiskey industry. I actually wrote my dissertation on it, would you believe? But it's a difficult one for me because I have a real passion for ESG. And this is where companies like these really looking to embed social value and ESG into their company shows us futures for these businesses. There is an opportunity to evolve and engage the next generation and really evolve them to a point that they can still be here in 20, 30, 50 years. So, what do positive steps look like towards embedding these two things, ESG and social value? Well, a key part of it is evidence. It's always one of those things that people talk about. If you can do something, you need to be able to measure it. So building credible evidence is really important. Like Gavin said, tenders now require evidence of you providing social value or ESG on any of the work that you're doing, as it's a key part of winning business. A main part of this as well is striving for the best you can do, aiming for that maximum meaningful impact. And a key word of that is meaningful. This isn't just impact for the sake of impact, striving to do something that actually makes a difference. And again, it has to be a difference that applies to everyone in society, not just one specific small group. You're aiming to actually improve society as a whole for all your stakeholders, your customers, and anyone that surrounds that. But even beyond that, you're looking at your own customers, your own customers' ecosystems that may not directly be involved with you. On the right, I've got some real examples of individuals, real ambitious individuals who are looking to make a difference at the grassroots level of their business. We've got Amy Gertz, who won Apprentice of the Year for INEOS recently, of course, in the oil and gas industry. As well, we've also got Ryan and Vicky, who won Net Zero Apprentice of the Year award. Now, key thing to note with these two people, these three people even, is they've all been fuel change participants. This is where they've had a real chance to start growing their mindset towards embedding ESG and social value, not only in their own personal lives, but in their day-to-day work.
Okay. Yeah, right. Everyone, first of all, thanks very much for coming this afternoon. It's been a fascinating conversation, and we could have talked for much, much longer. What I'm keen to do is let's keep the conversation going after this. Get involved, bring your voice to what we're doing here at Fuel Change. We're going to be running a series of webinars like this around different subjects, so we want to hear your voices. We're very involved in putting a sustainability curriculum into the schools, and we're looking for businesses who want to support young people in those schools and workplace situations. Giles, who's here today, and a number of others have been fantastic, acting in the role of mentors and judges. Tip my hat to you. Thank you very much. And Giles, I'm sure you'll agree, it's been a brilliant experience to be involved in supporting young people. We're looking for people to partner with us and just support the drive to create a better future for everyone. So let's stay in touch with each other.